right, next up we have the losers finals. We're going to have Swordbraker versus Vygg here. As always, guys, do not forget to subscribe and like the video if you do. Turn on the bell as well because we will have the finals and the finals coming up shortly. Ooh, spoiler? Yeah, it was a spoiler. Oh, well, whatever. It's cool. Both games are still pretty lit, so going to be exciting to go ahead and see all this play out as we get through the losers finals here. So without further ado, Vygg versus Swordbraker, Poro Furioso, number 3, losers finals. Yeah, no, because the winners finals was Vygg versus Connex. Connex is waiting in the grand final.
Oh, you had said earlier that Connex was waiting in the winners finals, so I got a little thrown off.
Well, I don't know. I consider that the winner. I guess it's the grand final, and then grand final round 2, I guess.
Yeah. Because I thought we were doing 4 matches, but it looks like here we'll be doing 3. And I guess if we get the bracket reset, then we'll do a 4th. Okay, yeah. Everything's starting to come together now.
All right, here we go.
Boulevard's getting on the same page.
We are getting.
So I thought it froze, but he actually is just roping.
Oh, really? All right,
well, yeah, it went on to the next turn this time around instead of...
So let's see if we are able to successfully get in. It looks like we are starting on turn 3, unfortunately, but hey, yeah, I mean, generally speaking, on turns 1 and 2, you don't miss too much, so it's not too bad. But it does look like we have Fiora Shen Barrier versus Vygg's Anivia Rekindler. Very curious to see how this goes. I have to think that, generally speaking, Vygg will be able to take this with Anivia Rekindler.
Yeah, there's really not a lot of food for the Fiora in a matchup like this. The River Shaper also not really going to have a chance to run away with the game here. This is a beautiful avalanche on the side of Vygg.
Oh, this feels good. This is drawing Delinquent Duo in your first hand. It's an instant 1 for 2. You just play the card. You get you know what it is. It's because I'm playing too much Dueling Book now because of Warp. But yeah, this feels good. Now the consideration, which is why Vygg is pulling it back, is can I be greedy? So it seems a little too easy sometimes to just go ahead and avalanche this. But if you don't, Swordbreaker will be able to go in for the attack with River Shaper quite nicely and just go ahead and get the free spell, which then devalues this avalanche. It's not actually getting a 2 for 1. If it ever kills the River Shaper, it's already paid for itself, and it does look like we are locking in the avalanche.
Yeah, and there's a lot of 3 to 5 health units in this deck. This is, in my opinion, as juicy as an avalanche could possibly look in the first couple of turns against Shen Fiora, because outside of those 2 units, nothing's got 2 HP. Maybe you wanted to try and get really greedy and hit a Fiora with it as well, so that you could finish that off with a Vile Feast, or maybe hit a Shen so that you can kill that with a Tavern Keeper a little bit later on. But I do think that avalanching there was the proper play, and it looks like Vygg agreed as he did go for it. Now, going to open up the turn with a pass, not wanting to commit the Tavern Keeper, or even burst pass with the Entreat, just in case he does have to play something. And yeah, I think the Shen is going to get a Tavern Keeper out of Vygg, especially because he does have this Glimpse Beyond sort of on backup.
Yeah, I mean, you do play mana efficiently by playing the Tavern Keeper as well. You will be able to just go into turn 5 banking the 3 spell mana. It does also get your Glimpse Beyond online at some point, just so you can go ahead and actually utilize that draw. The feels bad moment is that if it does have to block the Shen, the Shen's just going to kill it and trade with it quite nicely. So it's just going to feel a little bit bad. Looks like we're actually going to go with the Entreat here. Okay. Get the Anivia draw early. I like this too. You do have this Vile Feast to get a Spiderling out if you do really need it, and I don't think you're too worried about taking 3 damage from an open attack. That's a good draw. I'm really loving Crumble lately.
Yeah, Crumble's been feeling a lot better than I expected it to. And
yep.
Okay, Greenglade Caretaker. Not what Screeching Dragon is sort of what you would expect on turn 5, but even just one shy of the Ruination, that'd be 7 damage coming in. But yeah, this is nowhere near as threatening, but on the mana side of things, a lot more threatening, as our opponent can continue to go wide 1 turn before we're able to get down something like the Harrowing. And I don't think that spell mana is ever getting pre-committed, so something like a single combat is always going to be on the table for Swordbreaker here. Things looking a little risky for Vygg. This is a matchup where Crumble is really hard to get off.
Yeah, I really don't think Swordbreaker. I'm trying to figure out like an out for Swordbreaker here as to what he can play towards. I think it just needs to be the Fiora win condition. And with that said, you even mentioned earlier there's not a whole lot of targets, and I think that's why Vygg is not opting to play this Kindly Tavern Keeper yet. Doesn't want it to get, killed by something like the Fiora. One thing I want to mention about Crumble too, we were talking earlier about landmark removal. So we are technically seeing decks with landmark removal, right? We have Scorching Earth in a pretty prevalent, Swain Ezreal deck. And Shadow Isles is just prevalent in general. We're seeing Crumble in a lot of Shadow Isles decks now. And I think maybe we underestimated the versatility of it being able to kill a landmark. I mean, maybe that will actually come into play soon.
It's hard to say because there is only one landmark deck in the format right? That feels correct.
Wait, there's what?
Yeah, there's only one landmark deck in the format in the Star Spring.
Yep.
I was trying to think make sure that Howling Abyss sees some fringe playability, but overall, and that is one of the better decks in the format, and especially in the more control-y Shadow Isle lists, it can be difficult for you to deal with that. Sure, Ruination feels good against it, but it comes down to how much healing do they get off beforehand. We've even seen some spooky Karma players going for things like Crumble, just making sure that they don't take an auto loss against that, because it's not something that you want to be banning. Generally, Frostbite mid-range is the preferred ban of most players here. So yeah, just doing what you got to do, understanding that there is a very threatening deck in the format that you're going to have to pay some respect to, and ultimately paying respect to it. Looks like Glimpse Beyond's going to come down now onto this Spiderling. And I don't think you hate the idea of trading a Concerted Strike or single combat for this. The really unfortunate one would be if this just gets nopified.
Yeah, and I Nopify, especially with Go Hard being a thing now, I really feel like Nopify. There's no Nopify?
No. It's something that's kind of phased out of Shenfiora. That's kind of what was replaced with Sharp Sight.
Well, either way, I think Nopify might start, if we see Go Hard really start to become really prevalent in these Shadow Isles decks, you might see Nopify find a spot a lot more often.
I'm not going to lie, I picked up my first win against Spooky Karma with it because they denied my Pack Your Bags, and then my other Pack Your Bags didn't turn back into Go Hards, and I was like, oh. So yeah, Nopify onto Go Hard does also make it so that the additional copies are not shuffled in.
Yeah, yep, exactly, 100%. So we do have the option to play Anivia here, start getting her online. Looks like we are going to go ahead and take it. And, on the side of Swordbreaker, there is Concerted Strikes and Single Combats. There's 3 of each in this deck.
Yeah.
So, and we do have Laurent Protege, we have Screeching Dragon. There's a lot of different ways we can kill this Anivia. But I do think Vygg needs one to die, at least now, or as soon as possible, so we can start getting it in the pool for something like Rekindler or Harrowing.
Yeah, and I think that it's really not something that you want to play. You're not going to not play this Anivia because Concerted Strike is a threat. You do want to get this down. The one concern I would have here is deny onto the Glacial Storm and then just a block with the Caretaker, and then my Anivia's a little bit useless. They can probably clean up that egg, but if you're getting denies onto cards that are not named Ruination or Harrowing, that's a trade that Vygg is always going to feel like he's on the upper half of. And yeah, slamming down the Anivia feels really good. Any Concerted Strike that is coming out and it's not buffing up a Fiora or a Screeching Dragon, I feel really, really good about.
Yeah, and I like that. That's a really good point. Forcing those types of just really game-breaking cards that do have a lot of impact, like Deny, is really going to help Vygg here later on in the game. So we'll see if we are able to force one of those out. It looks like this might be a Concerted Strike if that's the case. I do like the attack with Anivia. I feel like it forces the trade onto the Greenglade Caretaker, and that is something that I guess you're kind of worried about. And
that's not what I was expecting.
Not what I was expecting either. That is really surprising. Well, we're still going to get the attack with Anivia. I guess maybe... I wonder if there's a single combat in hand to also kill the egg, and we're just trying to get a really big open attack here.
That is not out of the realm of possibility, but it doesn't look like it's actually going to be the case.
No, so I think just wanting to preserve as many units as possible on the side of Swordbreaker. Yeah, and just go in for a really big attack. Yep. Yeah. This is going to give something quick attack. This is pretty big. So, giving this Greenglade Caretaker quick attack, we see in the side, on the hand of Vygg, obviously we have Grasp of the Undying, which is going to be pretty big here. It will likely be the Caretaker, but it's going to feel really bad grasping something like the Caretaker, unless it's not quick attack. Then no, it's going to be the barrier.
Yeah, so Grasp does line up onto Shen pretty well here, and then actually Anivia onto the Brightsteel Protector. These are actually really good blocks for Vygg. He's going to lose out on a little bit of healing with the Grasp of the Undying, but as we keep saying, if you want to deny this instead of my Harrowing or the Ruination next turn, because if a deny comes out onto the Grasp here, I'm pretty sure Vygg opens the turn with Ruination and feels totally fine about that.
Yeah, my only problem with this is this Green Lake Caretaker getting so much damage in, this is really the only other concern beyond a Fiora win condition.
Yeah, it should die on the next turn, though.
It should, yeah. There shouldn't be any reason why Green Lake Caretaker actually sticks to the board. I mean, if there's another one, we might have problems. We actually waited on this. Doesn't make you don't gain.
It does make sense because of Sharp Sight.
Oh, okay, combat, yeah, because combat.
Yeah, if Sharp Sight came out, you would have taken a lot more damage than you would have Sharp Sight is used to protect it post combat. I do that a lot when I'm playing solo queue as well. I'm like, hold on a second, let me pull this back. Think about the in combat capabilities of something like this. So, if it seems weird to you, I'm pretty sure that's what Vygg was going for here.
Nope, I agree 100%. You're 100% right. So, yeah, so that is a good play around on the side of Vygg. That does prevent 2 additional damage, where he would end up at 9 instead of what's looking like 11 here. And there's the repost instead. So repost would have been even worse. Yeah. Now, this is big, though, because it not only levels up the Shen, but it also prevents all of this 3 damage. But, like you mentioned, we're going into a Ruination turn. And I don't think Swordbreaker can really play around Ruin it. Like, you just have to go for it. And this just loses the game now for Swordbreaker, I think.
I think you just open attack with the Anivia, and if Deny comes out onto the Glacial Storm, you know that your Ruination is totally safe. And if it doesn't, what? I mean, we just Tavern Keeper our face, maybe even crumble the Shen, and we feel like we're in a really good spot.
Yeah, just too much removal. I mean, we even have this Avalanche that we just top decked. Like, if things don't die, they will die. They would just might take a couple more cards than usual, but we will be able to get it done on the side of Vygg. And this was my concern going into this matchup for Swordbreaker was, do you really have any way to get through all of this just card advantage generation, all this removal? No, I think the answer is no. I think it's just so much damage and so much removal on the side of Vygg. Swordbreaker there's not enough River Shapers in the world to make up for that card advantage.
No, especially with just how good that turn 3 Avalanche was for Vygg. Yeah. There is Fiora coming down, so now the namesake champion's on line for Swordbreaker, but we could get something like a Tavern Keeper into a Crumble. Maybe we go for the Ruination, and it looks like we are just going to fire off the Ruination. So you know what? If you've got a Deny in hand, you better use it now.
So I'm a little concerned about playing it here, though, because Swordbreaker still has 5 mana. We could see something like a Screeching Dragon come down next, and that could be an issue on an open attack, because Crumble is slow. I mean, that is one of the drawbacks to Crumble. So if there's multiple units that come back, there it is. This might be an issue for Vygg. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. What you've done here is you've tested the waters for Ruination. So now, even if the Screeching Dragon kills your Ignivia, 1, you're probably going to go for a Glimpse Beyond, so you feel good about that. Yeah, the second one comes down, that's fine. I can play a Tavern Keeper, or I could try and crumble one of these out. My opponent is not representing lethal. I have a Harrowing. I have already tested the waters for Deny, and it was not there. I think that Vygg should be picking this one up. The concern that I would have is that we don't have any more than 1 Anivia in the death pool. We haven't played a Rekindler. There's actually a really weak Harrowing, and even if you pick up a Rekindler here, you can't play it in the same turn.
Yeah, and this is something to note for people that might not play many control decks, because that is essentially what this Anivia deck is. And
absolutely,
there is a lot of times there's situations like the plays that I just mentioned where the Screeching Dragon could come out, and that the opponent does have the ability to develop some more units here on this turn. Yeah, sure, that actually did end up happening. The issue is with control decks, you usually just need to remain calm at all times, and you will be able to deal with whatever your opponent throws down. As long as you know they don't have lethal, you're usually good because of top decks like Rekindler. Wow,
Rekindler's looking really good, especially alongside this Tavern Keeper, already back up to 14 HP. No card played for Swordbreaker, which makes sense. No matter what you draw, I'm not sure that you're really willing to throw it on the table on the side of Swordbreaker. You really want to try and bluff anything that you can. And I don't see a reason not to go in with this Anivia attack. If it dies, it'll immediately respawn at the start of the next turn. And if there is a single combat, that's probably the worst case scenario. But then the Screeching Dragons still don't really pair super well into the rest of your board.
Yeah, this is probably going to spell disaster for Swordbreaker. Not really going to be able to come back from this, even if you didn't block with either of these dragons. I mean, there is 1 mana, so they will live until the next turn for an open attack. But you're not going to be able to deal enough damage. Or, I mean, forget damage. You can't even deal with the field on the side of Vygg with the Anivia, the Kindly Tavern Keeper, and the Rekindler all already hitting the field. So I think this one is just about wrapped up for Vygg. It's just going to depend on what Swordbraker has here. Looks like there is the Sharp Sight. Not sure how long that's been in hand. But
it was just top decked. He was out of cards. Just top
deck. Okay, cool. So it will take care of the Anivia and save this dragon, but for how long? Well, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, so Anivia revives at the start of next turn. The Screeching Dragon dies to every unit that's on the field, and now we have 2 Anivias and a Rekindler in the death pool. This Harrowing is going to be the death sentence for Swordbreaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with only 1 card as well. It's it's looking like it's over. So Vygg using the Anivia, the Rekindler Anivia here to go up 1-0. There's the Harrowing. There is the Shen emote as well. And very impressed with how well this Rekindler Anivia deck did here. It took care of this Fiora Shen barrier deck with absolutely no problems. Didn't seem like Vygg was really ever in too dire of straits throughout most of the game. Had pretty solid control. And now we're just going to be able to attack with the spammable Anivia effect. Lots of storms coming in hot. There's another Anivia, because why not? And here we go. Yep, there's the attack, and there are all the Glacial Storms.
And Swordbreaker doesn't run Judgment. And if he did, he would have been able to live at 1, if the Harsh Winds wasn't top decked for Vygg. But yeah, that's kind of how we expected this one to go. There's really not a lot of food for the Fiora. You can't really get that win con online very easily. And just everything working out for Vygg. That Avalanche swinging the tempo really heavily in his favor, and now going to put his opponent down to -12 to end things off here in game number 1.
Leave it to you to find an excuse to work in why Judgment would have saved the game there. But without further ado, it looks like we are getting into game 2 here of Vygg versus Swordbreaker. And it looks like we do have Leona Aurelian Soul versus, yet again, the Fiora Shen barrier deck. So that means that Ezreal Swain did get banned.
I mean, it makes sense,
You seem like you're questioning that, though. You're like, does it really make sense?
It doesn't. The thing is, there didn't seem to be any blowout matchups lined up in this, so it's not like there's a very obvious ban of okay, this Ezreal Swain is going to blow me wide open if I don't take care of it. And I think that the Leona Aesol is a little bit more threatening. Maybe I'm just not paying enough respect to the Ezreal Swain, but I don't think either one was necessarily an incorrect choice. And okay, so we've got a decent opening hand on the side of Vygg. I think I've said time and time again that as good as Fiora Shen is, it feels like one of the decks that Hush is best into.
Oh, and it looks like we are frozen on the rope again. Wow, this is a pretty common
Vygg
bug.
threw out a Heimer emote.
Yeah, but it's still he might have roped, but it's still showing the rope on my end.
Gotcha.
So, man, this is pretty prevalent though. It seems to be happening almost every game.
Yeah, this is look, Spectator wasn't made for us.
No, it was made for a time period, or for a what's the word I'm looking for? A deadline.
Yeah.
So, well, needless to say, like I said, we do still have access to it, which is really all that matters, and it's not too bad because we are usually able to get right back into the game with just restarting the client and hopping back in, because that is 2020, everybody. That is the 2000s. You turn things off, you turn them back on, they work. That's how life goes. So can't we just turn 2020 off and turn it back on? Does that work for 2020 and COVID? Can we just do that?
I'm pretty sure if you turn everything off, everybody dies, and then there's nobody left to turn everything back on again.
That was dark, Boulevard. That just got real dark real fast. What is this? Jesus. Yeah, I baited you there, right?
Oh, man. This is my supervillain origin story.
Looks like
they called me a villain so long that I just turned into one.
Well, it does look like we didn't really miss anything. We are on turn 1 here. We have the, lo and behold, the turn 1 Fleet Feather Tracker, as you'd expect from the Demacia deck.
I think I figured it out, SJW.
How to cure COVID?
I don't.
I don't know.
Am I the bad guy when you're the one that won't stop bringing up COVID?
Hey, all right, whoa. Let's not act like it doesn't exist, all right? Jesus.
All right, so you had mentioned a little bit earlier, and this might have been on camera, might have been off, I don't remember, but the stream was actually, or the players were delaying themselves so that the Spanish stream could kind of get everything situated, right?
Yeah.
And we saw Vygg rope turn 1, followed by Swordbreaker also roping down to the Fleet Feather Tracker, and it got me thinking, What if the players are told to rope the first couple of turns
Yeah.
so that they can make sure that spectator is all set up for the broadcast?
So I know one of the tournaments we did for LRA, they were doing that.
Okay.
So somebody had told me after the fact that they were doing that, and I think that is kind of that is the solution currently to the bugs of spectator mode. So, which things could be worse, right? It's no different than going to a live card tournament and they're like, all right, hold your horses before you start. We need to get everything set. And then they say go, right? So
I don't know about you, but when I got my Yu-Gi-Oh feature match, I had to like play a lot slower than I'm used to because the guy behind me had to constantly type out my hand.
Oh my god, I remember that when they would type out the entire matches. Oh yeah, man. That was I would hate to have that job.
It was really weird because like I'm used to playing really fast. Now I've got to sit here and like hold up my hand for the guy behind me to like clack away before I just heavy storm this guy to end the game on turn 1.
You know, you can argue that negatively impacts your gameplay too because it's a psychological advantage if you're playing faster. Like, you know, so that kind of is unfortunate, but
I just remember my feature match was really short-lived because my opponent set 5. I heavy stormed and he just didn't have Starlight Road, and they were like, "Well, he didn't fall for it, I guess." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess that's the end of the game, huh?"
You mean you didn't? They weren't main decking Solemn Judgment too? Like, what the heck, man?
I think it was limited at the time.
Probably, yeah. Was it a burn deck?
No, it was a control deck.
That feels bad, man.
They like interviewed him after, and he's like, "Yeah, I've just been bluffing Starlight Road the entire tournament, and it just didn't work this time." And I'm like, "Really?
Really? Like, I'm not gonna not play Heavy Storm on 5 cards." Like, oh man. But alas, we are playing Legends of Runeterra, and it looks like, anyways, Swordbreaker off to a much better start this game. But again, you know, Vygg's deck is probably like they're both ideally a mid-range deck that we're seeing here, but Vygg is a little bit more catered towards a later mid-game than Swordbreaker's deck. So, although this seems like Swordbreaker's off to a good start, we do have Leona's in hand. We do have, I mean, this curves out perfectly right here, the Solari Priestess. You know, you're going to have 3 mana going into turn 5. Feels really good. You have some great options here. You have Comet. You have Traveler to get another unit down. The Traveler also does challenge the Fiora, but it does also provide more food for the Fiora, depending on how you look at it. So
I really like the Falling Comet pickup.
Yeah.
There's only 2 deny in Swordbreaker's deck. Well, there's not an insane amount of targets in your deck. You know, you are running Concerted Strike and Judgment, so you know, if you can just bait out one of those denies with a Comet, sort of test the waters for that. And I really like this attack as well. If you want to throw out a Sharp Sight or a Riposte, that is just going to get hushed. And I think the reason that we didn't see the hush come out on the previous turn when something like this was a consideration was because single combat and Sharp Sight was something that you had to keep in mind. But here now, nothing can single combat into the Ravune without the Sharp Sight. And now, gonna have a lot of barriers coming down for Swordbreaker's attack turn. But here comes Leona, gonna stop that Shen, and all of a sudden, things looking really weak on the side of Swordbreaker.
yeah, and this is exactly what I was thinking of earlier, right? I mean, yeah, sure, you have the better start, you have the Brightsteel, you have the Fleet Feather, the Fiora, you know, even the Shen. You have the 1, 2, 3, 4 punch, but once you hit turn 4, that's when Leona and Ravune start coming online, and this is going to start to get pretty nasty, I think, for Swordbreaker.
If Swordbreaker does not have Deny in hand, or rather doesn't have Concerted Strike, if you are absent those 2 cards, you might just die next turn to running out every Daylight card in your hand into the Morning Light.
Yeah, this is going to be one hell of a turn for Vygg. The attack token is going to come back over for turn 7 here for Vygg. We have the Solari Soldier. We have the Solari Priestess. We even have the Morning Light. And yeah, actually, what is that? Turn 7, 8, 9, 10? Yeah, you have plenty of mana for all of that. And even the Hush if you need it. So this is looking to be a pretty big turn 7 for Vygg. We'll see if he decides to go with just an all-out attack. But I don't know. Is that too risky? Is that too risky just investing your whole hand there?
It's a little risky, and it looks like Swordbreaker was sort of maybe bluffing, maybe contemplating a Concerted Strike. I don't think there was a really large punish on the side of Vygg. Of course, Vygg running his own single combats and Concerted Strikes can always upset your plans for something like that, and we're going to start off with the Solari Priestess into a couple of good options here. Can't get down any of the units on this turn, but I really don't hate stacking up on Comets.
I mean, is Comet ever really a bad choice, right? It's always feels good. No matter what matchup too. Like, I think Comet is probably the one card that is always a good choice, kind of no matter what.
Yeah, even against things like Pirate Aggro, I never felt bad playing it because eventually they're going to play their more mid-rangey unit, you know, like Gangplank or something along those lines, and that always felt pretty good.
You know, that's one thing I want to bring up. We have actually seen a decent amount of aggro pop up as of late, but not the old aggro's that we see. We haven't really seen any pirate aggro whatsoever.
No, it's really fallen off since Make It Rain got nerfed, which was interesting to me because you didn't think that was going to be the case. The deck had organically cut Make It Rain while it was still at 2 mana, put it back in a little bit later, and then decided, actually, that's the end of it. I think it has just been part of the diversification of Noxus and Bilgewater. There are just really good decks that you can run outside of that. And, you know, at this point, maybe Pirate Aggro just isn't strong enough for that consideration. We talk a lot about how if aggro is going to find its way into every lineup, it has to be an overpowered aggro deck. Once they start to feel a little bit more fair or something like that, we're really bringing them back to just aggro lineups. And Scouts has felt so much better than Pirate Aggro in recent memory.
Yeah, Scouts is, I mean, that Valor, it just makes that deck. Blinding Assault, I should say, more specifically. But go hard. Kills Blinding Assault, baby. Gotta love it. Gotta love whenever they play that into a go hard. But anyways, we are not talking about Shadow Isles. I just really love that deck, man. I could talk about that deck for days. Another Ravoon off the top for Vygg. This, again, looks like it's an okay of a turn for Swordbreaker. This Fiora win condition is suddenly becoming potentially a thing. We'll see if Vygg is able to deal with it. We do kind of have this Hush as a fallback no matter what.
Yeah.
If we go in for that 4th strike with the Fiora, we have this kind of get out of jail free card or break glass in case of emergency. And it looks like we might be able to just play out our hand again and go in for potentially another pretty big attack next turn with the Morning Light.
Yeah, you just have to make sure that you are leaving mana open for that Hush at all times. And it is a little bit awkward. If you lose your Fiora here to, you know, having, or rather lose your Leona to something like a Concerted Strike, yeah, your opponent doesn't win the game with the Fiora, but you know, you are still in a little bit of a scary position. It looks like right now Vygg considered throwing down some of these other units, but thought, wait, what happens if Relentless Pursuit comes out? Am I throwing if I play some units here? Swordbreaker knows that they have to continue to develop a little bit further because I am actually the one that is representing lethal potentially if I throw down a Ravoon.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out, so this Fiora is at 3 of 4. Yep. And I think there's something to be said about the idea of kind of baiting your opponent into their own win condition. And what I mean by that is Vygg is very much letting this Fiora get to 3 out of 4. And it kind of lulls your opponent into a sense of, I can play Concerted Strike to get the win, which is exactly what we're seeing here. So now, I mean, we have the Hush to prevent this.
So we don't actually need to Hush to prevent this. Who is striking first?
Did they pair it up wrong?
Okay, Fiora is striking first, which means you can actually Star Shaping to prevent the Fiora win con.
Yeah, and there it is. There's the Star Shaping.
So now we might have to see a Sharp Sight out onto the Fiora, in which case then we can use the Hush and just get a little bit more out of our opponent. But this is what I was worried about. We are still losing the Leona.
Yeah, I mean, that does feel a little bit bad. You know, you could argue maybe, there's the repost. They're actually
that's a Fiora's repost, so you even get the second Fiora out of your opponent.
Well, out of the hand for the time being, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, all of a sudden, you know, you don't have to worry about a second Fiora coming down if you do manage to kill this one. But now with the Hush and the Star Shaping gone, if there's another Concerted Strike, but that is the second Concerted Strike, right? We've used a fair amount of these at this point.
Yeah, that was 2. There is there's probably 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 3 in the deck, and there's also 3 reposts and 3 single combats. So now Vygg is kind of in a jam here. I mean, you kind of need to play a larger unit so that but even then, Destroyer, I think, does Destroyer have 7 health?
Yeah, so it could just get hit by a riposte, and Shen is also one off of leveling, so no matter what you play, if there's another barrier effect on the side of Swordbreaker, then that Fiora is just a 7/4 coming in for the final swing on the next turn.
You do have Leona Ravoon this turn.
It's kind of awkward though because you can't get the double stun. You would have to play Ravoon first, and then obviously you're not getting a stun on just Ravoon. Or if you play Leona first, then Ravoon doesn't count himself as a Daybreak card. It gets really awkward here.
Yeah, kind of unfortunate as far as that's concerned.
It looks like Vygg is like, actually, you know what? I'll just bide my time a little bit then. And a very non-committal Greenglade Caretaker on the side of Swordbreaker. Vygg, you have to commit something to the board, but we are encroaching an opportunity for you to die. Right, if there's a riposte on the side of Swordbreaker, then yeah, you died to an open attack.
Yeah. Now, the good thing with Destroyer at least it has a spell shield. We were just talking earlier about how strong spell shield is. That is one thing Vygg has going for himself right now. The question is there going to be something to pop this first? And if we have something like a single combat and a concerted strike in hand, that would do it. I can't really imagine. There is so we're worried about Fiora win con. There is the possibility we just win the game off of attacking now that Green Glade Caretaker's on the field.
Yeah, I think that Vygg might as well attack here. If your opponent has Riposte, you're not beating that. I mean, sure, you can try to play to your top deck, and Pale Cascade
that beats it.
Currently does not beat it, actually, because the Shen's going to level when it gives barrier to this Fiora, so any barrier spell is going to give her an additional +3 attack.
Yeah.
What? Swordbreaker does have to proactively commit something. The awkward part is that without any other fast or burst speed spells in hand, or specifically burst speed, Vygg can't get a draw off this Pale Cascade.
Always feels bad playing one of the best cards in the game, not quite as the best card in the game, and there's the Riposte.
Fiora's Riposte, yeah, so that is going to level the Shen. Then Shen is going to put the barrier onto Fiora, push her up to 7 attack. But that does mean that Vygg is now dead 6 ways to Sunday. Or no, that's right, it's only +2 attack on the side of the other unit. So actually, good Pale Cascade to survive this and then live at 1 HP. I thought that...
wow, that is close.
You know, we've been working in 3s for so long between the Ripostes and the Shen ability that I forgot that Green Glade only gives herself 2 attacks. So gonna live at 1 for the time being.
There's so much mana left from Swordbreaker, so I'm really curious as to what's in Swordbreaker's hand, though. If nothing gets played here, and we've seen a lot of spells, you gotta think those are probably units like Screeching Dragons or Laurent Proteges. There's only one Laurent Protege, so probably Screeching Dragons that are left in hand.
Maybe Deny.
And Brightsteel Formation's a thing in this deck too, and there is 9 mana left. We could even see that come down after the fact. Although I don't know, I feel like you just jam that this turn. If he had it, he probably would have just jammed the Brightsteel Formation, because why the heck not? So we'll see what happens on this attack. See if Swordbreaker has some sort of response. As of now, this Fiora is not gonna level on this turn, so curious to see. Now, we could add barrier to something else, and then we just win the game with lethal.
Yeah, that's the problem here, is that Vygg is being attacked on too many fronts, and Sharp Sight going to be the answer. And yep, that is going to be lethal via Fiora. Which would you prefer to die by? The Fiora or the regular lethal? Do you like seeing this animation?
I mean, you get the extra animation. I'd say I'd rather just to see the animation, the Fiora lethal, or whatever we want to call it, whether it's lethal or something else. But that is going to be Swordbreaker tying it up with Vygg there, 1-1. The question is going to be not just who can take game 3, but will we have an error loading into the 3rd game? Tune in to find out here on Poro Furioso.
So I would imagine that the Frostbite mid-range was banned. Not only is that just sort of the staple ban, but also Reckoning really destroys a lot of what you had left over. So it really comes down to Vygg, who we had mentioned previously. You know, there was some Celestial Generation in the Dragon deck. A lot more is going to be available for Vygg here. A couple additional tools. And Hush is also just, not bad against things like the Soraka deck. It really takes that Astral Protection health off the table. And I don't necessarily hate the position that Vygg finds himself in. Concerted Strike is one of the better removal spells against a deck like this as well.
Yeah, so now we saw Fiora Shen take home a victory. Now we're going to see what was banned on the other side. Was it Rocket Tench or Kench, or was it Ash Sejuani? I don't know. I feel like it can go either way. We did have Crumble in the Anivia deck, so that would have been theoretically an answer to the Rocket Tom. And actually, I'm going to try something here. I'm actually going to end Legends of Runeterra before we even try to get into the game, and see if doing it proactively avoids the problem. Okay. So
I'm going to run in there like a madman and tell you that it is going to be Frostbite mid-range against Leona Aesol. But my game froze as soon as I rushed in there, so it looks like the smarter play. You're the winner this time around, SJW. I recklessly rushed in. I Leroy Jenkins into the game, and I got the information, but I did not make it out alive.
Oh, who doesn't love a good Leroy Jenkins, though? Come on, let's be honest here.
I should have done it. I should have done the voice, right?
Oh yeah, Leroy Jenkins. It's one of the few.
Time's up. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Now I have to wait for my friends list to load.
Yeah, same here. It's like what's all the Leroy Jenkins quotes we can think of from Hearthstone now. I actually queued up Hearthstone because I had packs I never opened from the last set. I
uninstalled it like back in March.
Oh Jesus, that bad, huh? Wow, what did
it was
it ever
just
do to you, man?
Huh?
Never mind. You know what? Don't answer that question.
It was just that, like, I was logging in to do my dailies. I had like fallen behind on like some expansion that I didn't feel like paying for, and it like had a bunch of cards that were relevant for meta decks, and I just like after like a month of just logging in to do dailies and then not looking forward to the next set, and like I hated logging in, playing Hearthstone for like 5 games to do my dailies, then going to play Runeterra, and I'm just like, I've always been a 1-card game man. It was time.
Yeah, and it's really hard. So me and you have always talked about it's hard to cast as much like this much stuff and still play consistently. And on top of that, if you try adding a second card game, it's like, what am I even trying to do?
It is impossible. I have not had more than 8 hours continuously to myself in 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yep. All for a good cause, though, Boulevard, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. As long as people like what I'm doing, If I suck at this, you guys need to tell me.
He's investing a lot.
I've been casting a lot of things, and if you guys aren't liking this, I need you to tell me so I could, either
be honest.
I guess just leave.
Yeah.
I'll be like, yep, that was a good run. I'm gonna go cry.
Don't be scared here. On this channel, we appreciate honesty in chat, so totally okay. But Leona, and I gotta okay. All right, my stance kind of on Leona. It's very back and forth. I don't really think she's the greatest. However,
I think she's pretty.
Well, I mean, damn, man, I didn't know you were into that kind of stuff. But anyways, no, animated girls, man. Jesus.
Hey, everybody, look at Boulevard. He kisses girls.
Cooties. No, her champion spell. I think actually. So Morning Light, I remember a lot of people when they reviewed it when it first came out, they were like, "This is bad." I actually think it's probably one of the best champion spells in the game. It can just end games.
I would agree with you. Yeah. I think I was talking, maybe it was with you even, about how Nautilus's Riptide is probably the best champion spell. And there are a lot of champion spells that get a lot better with the champion on the field. Leona's Morning Light and Nautilus's Riptide are definitely the two to come to mind. Granted, Riptide feels like cheating because it specifically says, hey, if you have Nautilus on field, you get a little extra, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does feel like cheating. I'm not going to lie. Oh, hey, you already have a 13-13. Let's just add more on top of that. But we do have the Concerted Strike coming down here.
You actually can't save the Ash. Troll Chant puts her up to 5 HP and puts your opponent down to 5 damage. Wait, I'm spectating Swordbreaker. How did that happen?
Wow, way to go. Way to go, Boulevard.
I could have sworn I could have sworn I clicked on Vygg. Before I go, I'm going to let you know the hand. It's 2 Babbling Beard, 2 Culling Strike, and a Troll Chant.
All right, cool. So the Babbling Beards will actually allow Swordbreaker to really stay in this and provide that card advantage needed. Which, honestly, I mean, when you're playing mid-range Frostbite and you're also main decking 3 Babbling Beards, that's kind of what this deck does, right? It keeps up on advantage, so it can maintain that mid-game tempo that it wants to and keep trying to run over the opponent. But, wow, Culling Strike is not going to save it.
Yeah, there was no way to save it. Yeah. You were just, I mean, if you had Culling Strike and Troll Chant available, yeah, you can go for it. But the one thing that I did want to mention about this Leona is that critically, she still dies to Reckoning even when she's leveled.
Leona does, yes, to Reckoning. I always, you know how many times I mix up Reckoning for being 4 attack or 3 attack? Like, I always have to remind myself it's 4 attack. Because there's a card that's 3. Is it the stun one?
Cosmic Rays?
No. The stun. Roar?
No, that's 4 attack as well.
No, is it? Or is it 5 or less?
Intimidating Roar?
Intimidating Roar. Is it 3?
Stun all enemies with 4 or less power.
Oh, it is 4 or less. Okay, so they're both just...
The one that you might be thinking of is the new one, Sneaky Zeebles, but that's 2
or less. Yeah, no. Nope, I'm just in my own world as usual, so it's fine.
And I know they had mentioned that they tested Sneaky Zeebles as stun 3 or less, and it was just unbearably broken.
Well, it's funny, because I had tried that in a Yasuo deck, and then I thought the exact opposite. When it's stun 2 or less, it's absolutely terrible. So it's like they never have the right units on board for you to actually use that card, unfortunately.
Okay, so this is a little confusing to me, honestly, where we throw out the Yeti into the Leona, bounce off of each other. Oh, no, I guess this makes a little bit more sense now. We didn't really expect the star shaping to come out, but, the plan's totally foiled on the side of Swordbreaker. His hand now down to 2 Babbling Bjerg, which, honestly, committing a lot in the combat there instead of trying to develop their own strategy, and it backfires big time.
And another Leona drawn there. So we're going to get the stun with the Eclipse Dragon. The Eclipse Dragon, man, I am so impressed with this card, especially the ability to play Aurelion Soul on 8. And we have the combo. It is in hand. We have the Aurelion Soul. Going to be pretty excited to see this come down on turn 8 because it's not often that we do see it. And Swordbreaker really far behind on board and card advantage right now. So,
ooh, this is my favorite play, the turn 8 Aurelion Soul. I've been talking this one up. Ooh, I've got a weird visual bug for me, and it's actually really pretty. It's like the celestial border is like extending itself onto the board. I like this.
All right, there we go, everybody. I'm gonna add a little bit of the serenading music from the game. Give me 1 second here. Gonna add. Oh no, we want output. There we go. I'm always back and forth as to whether or not I should have the in-game music playing. I feel like most people enjoy the extra little background music, right?
Probably. I mean, I have all my audio muted when I go into spectator mode because it's a little bit distracting for me, but that's because it's like right in my ear.
All right.
And it enhances my viewing experience, but when I gotta talk over it.
And actually, so if I did the headphones, it actually is going to capture your voice as well. So I'm gonna work on that while we keep casting here. Try to get this this audio turned on for you guys. But
I'll get these settings correct eventually. Curious to me that we're throwing out our big attackers as the blockers, because I wouldn't think that we're going to be finishing off these dragons with damage, especially with Aesol still being at 6 HP. Mm-hmm. I guess if we drew Sejuani, we can go for a kill onto the Aesol. Maybe what we were setting up for here, and this is a real desperate play, but sometimes you got to go for it, is we're going to try to Sejuani the Aesol, and then if there is a single combat for the Eclipse Dragon, then we are going to kill the Eclipse Dragon at the very least. Sort of awkward part is that, oh, okay, we just slammed down the Great Beyond. I was expecting a Leona effect to stop the Sejuani from happening, and we just didn't do that. So it looks like I was right on the Sejuani at 6 attack at the very least, but Vygg not respecting that and not leaving open the possibility of stunning it.
Yeah, actually pretty surprised there. This is a pretty easily removed Aurelion Soul, which is not something I feel like we say often. Aurelion Soul usually sticks.
Said, though, I was going to say, I thought Vygg had lethal with Ravoon into Morning Light. Mm-hmm. But now the Daybreaks are offline, and we don't have mana for Ravoon and Morning Light, so I guess not.
Yeah, now what we do have, though, is...
we do have the Immortal Fire.
Yeah, we have plenty of elusive units to go ahead and attack here, which is going to
be
a problem.
The fact that these guys have Spell Shield and stuff like that, a Frostbite effect would still save us from the Immortal Fire. And I believe we would actually survive through this as well, as we have blockers for everything. Our board is definitely going to get a little destroyed here. Okay, we line up the Omen Hawk onto the Charger. That, to me, almost reads like we are going for a Harsh Winds. Could still be a Flash Freeze, though. Maybe just trying to preserve our own 3/3. But it's got to be some kind of freeze, Swordbreaker, and you don't have a lot of them.
Yeah, yep. No, that's just going to be game there. Wow. All right. So it looks like Vygg going to be able to take this with the elusive units, and this was kind of my concern from Swordbreaker. There is he just never really had enough resources. This game fell behind early. And yeah, just going to take the full attack here, getting taken down by Vygg. Vygg going to go up 2-1 and take home the series. Going to advance to go ahead and take on Con X in the grand finals, where he will have to beat Con twice in order to go ahead and take home this tournament. So we'll see if Vygg is going to be able to do that here in just a moment. So Con X has been waiting patiently too. Con X has been chilling for a while, waiting obviously for the losers bracket to go ahead and finish out here. before we're able to actually get started and get into his game. So, all right, trusty old Vygg here, getting a win for his team over the weekend for Team Mafia to win the LRA and actually take home the LRA, and also seemingly doing pretty good here in the Poro Furioso number 3. So we'll see if Vygg can take down Con X in the next game. Again, don't forget to turn on that bell so you get notified when that video does go live. And as always, everybody stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you. And peace out.